Hello and welcome to Dog Day Chess. In this episode we're going to look at a particular type of chess swindle. We're going to look at how you might be able to turn a losing game into a draw by forcing your opponent to capture your last remaining mobile piece, and therefore leaving the game in stalemate. Let's look at some examples. In this game I'm playing black and I'm obviously in a losing position. White is ahead by a rook and several pawns, and he has this pawn on f7 that's waiting to promote. But I did notice that if I should move my rook off of the promotion square, and white promotes the pawn to a queen, my king for the moment will have no squares to move to. It was a long shot, of course, but with that in mind, I pushed my pawn to blockade it and leave myself with one less piece that it can move. White pushed his g-pawn, and I brought my rook out, hoping that if white promoted his pawn to a queen, I'd be able to get some counterplay with my rook. Sure enough, that's what happened, and now my king can't move either. Only my rook can move. So if I can force white to capture my rook without disturbing the pieces that are blocking off my king, it will be a stalemate. So I check the king. White should have blocked the check with his rook, but instead he moved the king, allowing me to move my rook right beside the king with check. I'm essentially saying, please take my rook. Here, white moved to the h-file. If he had moved to f3 instead, he would have been able to save the game because his king would have eventually been able to find shelter from my checks. But on the h-file, the king is trapped and I can just check him indefinitely. After a couple more moves, the game was drawn because if white captures my rook, it'll be stalemate, and if he doesn't, we'll draw by repetition. In this example, I'm in a similar situation, but unfortunately for me, the outcome was not the same. Again, I was playing black, and white promoted his pawn to a queen, leaving my king with no squares to move to. You'll notice that the knight is cutting off a5. So again, I tried to force white to take my rook. I checked him, and I checked him again, and again. But now, after this last check, he's able to capture my rook with his knight, which was one of the pieces that was restricting my king. This capture frees up a5 for my king, so I couldn't get the stalemate that I was hoping for, and instead I just got checkmated on the next move. In this final example, I'm playing white. I'm down a piece and several pawns, and black has these two passed pawns that are marching forward down the board. Black checks me with his queen, clearing a path for his b-pawn, and then checks me again. I purposely moved my king into the corner because on h1 my king has no legal moves thanks to the queen on g3. Next, black pushes his h-pawn. So what would you play now if you were white? What's the continuation that would allow white to force the draw without exception? Pause the video now if you'd like some time to think about it. The move is queen captures bishop. This time it's a case of take my queen please. From here, there's nowhere that the black king can go to avoid either capturing my queen or repeating the position. In the game, he went to f8, which allowed me to play queen to f7 check, forcing the capture and the stalemate. So those were some examples where giving up my last mobile piece drew the game. As always, I hope you learned something from this episode, and thanks for watching.